because they won't trust the government. They don't. That's why they're angry. They don't trust the government. Liberals don't. Liberals don't like it because the government's not sending them enough. Conservative and libertarians are concerned because they paying all the bills. So everybody's upset and angry. But when it stops working, people will keep working. I mean, this happened in other countries. They always had a huge underground in the Soviet system. And it was well known in Italy. The more trouble they had, the more socialized they had, the bigger the underground economy was. I'm not advocating the underground economy, but I am advocating a system of government that would prevent the need for that. But I'm just saying that's a possibility that that the federal government will become neutralized, and people will just take it upon themselves to do what they need to survive. Because the biggest threat in a financial way, in a political way, to us today is the dollar, the destruction of the dollar. And it's being held up artificially. The people in the world still trust it, and we buy their influence. We promise we'll defend them if you buy our dollars and don't crash the dollar. But they can't do it forever. I remember in the 1980s, they said the Japanese stock market would never crash because the banks owned all the stocks, and they always propped it up. But the markets are stronger than the government. And markets, even though this fiat dollar standard has existed since 1971, it's amazing that it has lasted this long, but it only made the bubble that much bigger. But the time will come when people will lose confidence around the world, and people in this country will lose confidence, which means prices are going to go up, and interest rates are going to go up, and the stage is set for rampant inflation. If you have a destruction of a currency, that means it goes to zero. That is dangerous, and that is what we should do our best. Hopefully, we'll come to our senses and call it off, and come back with a little bit of restraint on the printing presses. But there's no signs that will happen. So it is the generation of individuals between the age of 15 and 25 that really have it cut out for you, because I believe in that age group you'll make that decision in the next 5, 10, 15 years on exactly what kind of world or what kind of country we're going to have. But we don't know when that's going to come. Now, if they move this thing along rather rapidly and we start stirring up a war with the Iranians and Pakistan gets annoyed with us killing people over there, I mean, there could be a geopolitical event that would cause chaos enough to just totally erode the foundation. The foundation is really gone, but it just could be toppled. Just like the financial system in August of 2008, I think the professors that understand Austrian economics knew that it was a bubble. It was going to burst, and it did, and we weren't surprised. Same thing happened to the dollar. But the people, even though we might have said it was coming, we didn't know that it was going to really burst in, I guess, by August or September of 2008. And we don't know when people will lose the confidence in the dollar, and it could come in a month or it could come in 10 years as far as I'm concerned. But we're gradually every day getting closer to that. But the wonderful thing is we have good history. We have better history than most other countries, because there was a time we understood and respected property rights. We understood contracts. We understood sound money. We understood personal liberty and freedom of speech and freedom of religion. So these things have been known. You take a country like Russia, they never had as much respect for those issues as we have. So we have reason to be optimistic that if we just wake up and do the right things, that we can overcome this. The thing that I would advise everybody, if you have to ask me, that is that if you're concerned and thinking about this and studying economics and studying political thought, that I think the most important thing you can do is diverse yourself from partisan politics. I don't think there's any benefit by being a strong partisan. Now, that doesn't mean I disown the Republican Party, but it means that it's much more important to understand Nixon's admonition back in the 70s when Bretton Woods broke down, when he said that we're all Keynesians now. What we need to do is change it around and say that we're all Austrians, all Miesians, all... But I do want to spend a couple minutes on the issue of the Federal Reserve. My name's been associated with the Federal Reserve for a few years. Back in the 80s, I introduced, well, almost every time in Washington, I've introduced a bill to audit the Federal Reserve. But the most signatures I ever had was about 18. So right now, most of you probably heard that the 1207 audit the Federal Reserve. We now have 282 co-sponsors, all Republicans, over 100 Democrats on that. Let me assure you, that's rather remarkable for one of Ron Paul's bills. But it's also a sign that perseverance can help and work. And also, in approaching crisis or being in the midst of a crisis, and the American people waking up and saying, we want transparency, we want to know what's going on. You gave away $700 billion in TARP funds, and the Congress doesn't even know where it went, and people got all these huge bonuses. Then all of a sudden they've looked into and started listening about the Federal Reserve and find out that they deal with even bigger sums of money. And they can do deals with other governments, with other central banks, international financial organizations, and private corporations. We don't know who they are, what they do, what markets they interfere with. They are Fed is one of the 4 members of the President's Working Group on Financial Markets, which are designed to interfere in markets to smooth them out. That is, fix prices, go in and buy and sell to try to settle the market. But we're not allowed to know what they do. But an audit of the Fed would help tell us about this. They will not relinquish lightly. There's been a couple lawsuits filed against the Federal Reserve, and there's been a recent one. I guess it was Bloomberg won the case and said that the Federal Reserve would have to tell, under the Freedom of Information Act, tell who some of these loans were made to. And but the Fed that's going to be a long time. I'm glad they're doing that. And even with the audit bill, the most important thing about the audit bill is the attention that the Federal Reserve is getting. Matter of fact, if next month they come in and they twist the arms of the leadership and they say absolutely nothing is going to be passed, we're not going to give anything, believe me, that will be more of an incentive for the American people to demand even louder to find out what they're doing. But you know, their argument is, well, if you do that, we don't want you to get involved in politicized monetary policy. Like if we knew what they did last year, who got the loans, that was politicizing it. But it's not politicizing it if a Federal Reserve chairman pursues a monetary policy that benefits the president, so the president reappoints him as chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. And I guess it's not politicizing it if Goldman Sachs has an influence on the Federal Reserve and Treasury, which they always do. Oh, that's not political. But if you happen to find out a little bit about the Federal Reserve, and the Congress finds out a little bit about the Federal Reserve, oh, you're going to disrupt things. Tonight there was somebody arguing against what I want to do, and he was saying on TV that we don't need this at all. He said that this would just cause a lot more trouble. It would cause instability in the markets. And he says, I want to see a Federal Reserve that gives us a sound dollar. I think if I was there, I might point out to him that yes, the Federal Reserve has given us a sound dollar, soundly worth 4 cents on the dollar when that started. So the Federal Reserve exists for various reasons, and it's been accepted for so long because it accommodates the politicians who spend too much. The Fed monetizes the debt. And the Federal Reserve, I think the size of the government would be very small if they couldn't get away with that. Of course, it's the source of the business cycle. I think it's morally incorrect to allow anybody to counterfeit money, let alone a Federal Reserve system to counterfeit it and do absolute disobedience to the Constitution by using only gold and silver and no authority to have a central bank.